If you could do one thing in this country to change our public schools that would particularly benefit low-income kids, what would you do?
Well, clearly school choice and empowering parents to put their kids in the appropriate setting. For some parents, it might be another public school across town that they think is better. For others, it might be a faith-based education. Allowing parents to become the ultimate and final arbiter and decision maker on where their kids are getting their education is, for me, deeply empowering. Most Americans have that choice because they're rich or because they moved to a better neighborhood, but low-income parents do not. And that's, in my mind, wrong. It's immoral that the only people in America who have no control over where their kids go to school are low-income parents. But I think, I have 4 teachers in my family. The one thing I know for sure is the breakdown in society is a major contributor to the lack of educational achievement. No matter how much you pay teachers or how much you reform the curriculum, if kids are coming from an unstable background where learning is not valued, where they live in a dangerous neighborhood in substandard housing with parents that are either not around or not engaged, these kids are going to struggle. And we've got to recognize that reality. And while government can't do anything to turn it around, we should certainly not be doing anything that's an impediment to strong families and strong family life.
When you look at some of the things going on that are more innovative around the country in K-12, what makes you excited?
Well, if you think about 25 or 30 years ago, I think back when I was growing up, if I wanted to learn about something, I'd have to go to the school library and hopefully they had a book on topic that wasn't outdated, or if not, I had to convince my parents to buy a book for me. Today, if you want to learn about something, you can learn about it in seconds. And so because the internet and the access to this information has basically flattened information flow, it's available to anybody now. This was a huge dynamic shifting development. We have to somehow figure out how to get that into classrooms. And that, by the way, should be reflected in the local curriculums too, because as the world changes, what we're teaching, the skills we emphasize, the practical skills we emphasize, are going to have to keep pace with an economy that is not just changing, but will change faster than economies and markets have ever changed before.
At K-12, we still have about 40% of our students who aren't reading or able to do math at proficiency. Yeah. So as President of the United States, and you don't believe the federal government should be that involved, I mean, you've gone as far as to call for the abolishment of the Department of Education.
Yes.
What do you do to make these changes happen?
Well, again, I mean, the first thing you do is you have a president that understands that those changes will never come from the federal government. It has to be about ensuring that local school districts and states are making those changes by devolving power back to them.
Recently, Mrs. Clinton said, charters are cherry-picking kids, and has received the endorsement of both of the teachers' unions. Do you see Democrats as being able to think about the future in the terms you're talking about, or are they too beholden to
to be fair, when out in Florida, I was in the state legislature for 8.5 years. When we started in Florida, every Democrat was against any school choice, charter schools, parental choice. And then over time, as individual students began to benefit from these programs, we found, for example, a majority of the African-American legislators that were Democrats began to become supporters of school choice. So that's a positive development. But you touch on something, and that is the Democratic Party relies heavily on contributions and support from teacher unions around the country, who quite frankly are one of the biggest impediments to educational reform in this country. And so she's a captive of that. They've taken over the Democratic Party's educational agenda, and Hillary Clinton, who's probably going to be the Democratic nominee, is not going to be able to be an innovator on K-12 because she's fully owned by the teachers union when it comes to K-12 education.